times within our community, we we sometimes feel the pressure to acquiesce to the patterns and systems of what other people do in their homes. It's that, but for example, there was a period of time within the black culture that whatever was said in those local churches and local communities, those things permeated and dictated how people maneuvered in their home. Like whatever the pastor said, that voice of that pastor was even louder than the daddy of the house. And so that in itself is problematic, because that father, by God's grace, is to be the head shepherd of that home. And so I think that the most important thing that a mother or father or a dual home is to always lead with honesty.
I mean, he's kind of telling the truth on that one. One thing that I kind of, I was kind of reflecting the other day, thinking about, like every community is very different, right? Like obviously the first community that you first have and establish is your own home, right? Your family, your kids, that's your first community, and everything else is like an extended, but you're all part of that same village. And I find that today people are not really in accordance with some sort of parenting teaching, some community, beliefs in how they run their community or how they run their church. And quite frankly, we're too in a bit of like, do what you want, do as you please. And unfortunately, we have too many people steering the ship in the wrong direction. And, and unfortunately, it's a reflection in the culture today. It's a big reflection in what's happening out here today in terms of young people, in terms of like what's happening in most relationships in people's homes, right? You always got to have your house in order. And that's the number one priority before you ever help anybody else.
I ain't gonna lie, I had missed some of that clip, that last clip of Kirk.
Yeah, he was just basically talking about how some of the loudest voices in the past used to be the pastors and things that were going on within the church. And towards the end, he just said that what people need to understand is they need to just preach the truth, the truth to the kids, the truth to the family.
Oh, I find that interesting for him to say, and I don't know how far in between that clip and the last clip of you that you played, because on the last clip, he pretty much okayed people having children out of wedlock, right? He was talking about how you don't have to get married if you bring a child in the world. There was a point where that was a necessity. It was expected. But, he pretty much justified saying, well, God not going to get upset at that. So that almost contradicts the very thing that he's talking about. Because if you believe in the Bible and you preach this word, right, and you have these morals and standards, then you're kind of going along with the secular thoughts that people have, much rather than sticking to the scripture.
Before I'm gonna go to you, Luis, sometimes I want to ask you guys and kind of factor in, if you are a religious person and you do have morals, and I've been asked this question before, like if your son or your daughter decides that they are the opposite sex, like how do you go about that? Like what is the correct thing to do? Does that shape and shift how the outlook on how people look at the laws and they look at everything else when it comes to what's accepted in the society? You can go ahead and answer if you want to, Luis, and then.
Well, I mean, just to answer that quickly, I want to go back to what Biz brought up. I've always said it. People today are much more fearful of man's law versus God's law, right? It's like if I can't do this under this, God's protection, etc., I'm going to do it under man's law because it's a much more secular perspective and it's much more liberating kind of mentality, because there's a certain level that you have to be hold to. Viz, when you said something, it kind of reminded me of the movie A Few Good Men. There was that line by Jack Nicholson. He's like, I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. And that's just the reality of today. People can't handle the truth, because if I'm going to be a brother to you, if I'm going to be a community member to you, and I tell you, hey, bro, y'all out of pocket. Like what you did, that's just wrong. Or hey, what you said, that was foul, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey man, I see you, you know what I'm saying, beating on your woman. Yeah, that's not the way that we move. That's not the way that men handle their business. You know what I'm saying? But you can't say that without having offended them emotionally and then put your life on the line, because now that person wants to fight. Now they want to kill you because they can't handle the truth that what they're doing is wrong and the way that they're going about it is wrong. Right. And unfortunately, we are in a society that people are coddled. We are, this society of young people are so coddled. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at the layoffs that are happening right now. People crying, you know what I'm saying? Like millennials and stuff like and Gen Zs, because of what's happening, and as opposed to kind of rallying together and what is my next step and evaluating, the first thing they just do is just cry and complain. You know what I'm saying? Like crying and complaining in other parts of the world, because that was brought up earlier too. That's a luxury. Crying and complaining is a luxury in other parts of the world. They're like, all right, what are we gonna do about this? Like, all right, like this is a situation. Like, go get these guys. Like, we got to come up with a game plan. This is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna move forward. But unfortunately, we've made the internet to kind of be like the therapy session. It's like the global couch where people just vent off about things that they can control, and they can't handle the truth because unfortunately they just haven't been given the tools to how to properly cope. There you go.
Yeah, so perfect example, Luis. I was just on a call. Some of my best athletes got in trouble. They was blowing my phone up yesterday, but I was out of commission. They got in trouble, and now they are whining about not being able to compete and being able to come to practice and being able to what? You were shooting what are those little pellet guns, soft pellet guns at
Airsoft.
somebody in the parking
Airsoft.
lot.
BB gun.
And her dad might press charges. What do you mean you don't understand?
It's probably a
Like,
paint gun.
what do you mean?
And,
So I get
that's
it, man. I agree with you 100%, Louise, because it just literally got the call that we don't have no relay, we don't have nothing, we don't have no jumper. These kids are delusional is the word we should use. Delusional.